The summer sun beat down on the windshield of Liam Thornton's old SUV, making him squint despite the visor being down. The road to the Pine Coast Recreation Center looped between the hills surrounding New Bedford. There was a tense silence in the car. Vanessa had been concentrating on her phone for the past half hour, chuckling quietly at something she didn't think she should share with her husband. "Are they here yet?" Liam broke the silence, referring to the Murphy family they'd arranged to meet at the lake. Vanessa flinched slightly and quickly locked the screen. "What? Oh yeah. Garrett texted that they'd been there for an hour. They've checked into cabin 4. She turned. Liam nodded, looking at the sign that said it was 3 miles to the Pine Coast. For the past few months, Vanessa had become aloof, hanging out on the phone too often. He put it down to fatigue. She'd recently been promoted to senior receptionist at the Harbor Inn, and the new responsibilities were taking their toll. 15 years of marriage had taught him not to push when she needed space. The road ducked into a shady pine forest, and in a few minutes they were entering the gates of the recreation center. Pine Coast was a complex of 20 wooden cabins scattered along. Murphy's car, a late-model black SUV, was parked outside the lodge with the number 4 on the door. Liam parked next to the third cabin and turned off the engine. "We're finally here," Vanessa stretched. "My whole body felt stiff." Liam smiled as he watched his wife quickly fix her hair in the rearview mirror, freshening her lipstick a little. For a road trip, she looked a little too dressy. A white short-sleeved blouse that emphasized her tanned skin, skinny jeans, and new sneakers. Vanessa was always careful about her appearance, even in the most casual of situations. "Hey, Thorntons!" came a loud voice, and Garrett Murphy, with his usual broad smile on his tanned face, came striding toward their car. "I thought you changed your mind about going." Garrett, tall and trim, with short dark hair that showed a slight gray at the temples, hugged Liam tightly as he got out of the car. "Traffic on the way out of town," Liam shrugged. "The usual." Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Garrett cast a quick glance at Vanessa, who was just getting out of the car. It was only a split second, but there was something oddly intimate about it. Or was he imagining it? "Eloise is already at the beach," Garrett pointed toward the lake. "Come on, settle in and join us." "Guys, this place is amazing," Eloise said excitedly. "There are boat rentals, canoe rentals, surfboard rentals, and in the evening there are movies in the main building and board games." Liam loaded his bags and walked up to the porch of the third cabin. It was more spacious than it looked from the outside. A living room with a fireplace, a kitchenette, a bedroom, and a small bathroom. Everything was rustic, with wooden furniture and plaid curtains. "Vanessa, where are you?" Liam unloaded the bags in the bedroom and walked back to the car. Vanessa and Garrett immediately cut the conversation short, as if he'd caught them doing something indecent. "Let me help you with the rest of the stuff," Garrett said, unnaturally cheerful. "I'll do it myself," Liam said, surprised at his tone. "But thank you." Garrett shrugged. "Suit yourself. Half an hour on the beach, then?" Liam said, turning to Vanessa. "Sure," he answered too quickly. When they were alone and "You're making it up. He meant all of us. It'll be nice to get away from people." An hour later they were all settled on a small sandy beach. Liam was playing water polo with a couple of men from the neighboring cabins, Derek and Sean, who had come with their wives. Vanessa and Eloise were sunbathing on towels, and Garrett was showing his neighbors how deftly he could cast a spinning rod while standing knee-deep in water. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun was getting particularly hot, and the group decided to move under an awning near the shoreline. The men started to build a fire for the barbecue. The women prepared snacks and drinks. "Guys, who had the idea to come here?" Derek asked, tossing wood into the fire. "This place is amazing, I'll give you that." "Garrett suggested it," Liam said, glancing at his friend. said he'd found it on the internet on special offer. Actually, Garrett cleared his throat. Vanessa was the one who first sent me the link to the Pine Coast. We were discussing it when he paused and Liam saw his wife shake her head slightly, pretending to fix her hair. When we were at your barbecue last month, Garrett finished awkwardly. Liam frowned, trying to remember that night. They had indeed had a backyard barbecue, but he didn't remember Vanessa and Garrett having any long conversations about vacationing. He'd had to leave for an emergency call that evening. The diagnostic equipment at the auto service center where he worked as a mechanic had broken, and the customer was expecting a car in the morning. He came back late, when everyone had gone out and Vanessa was cleaning the kitchen. "Right," Liam said. "I remember." But the truth was, he didn't remember having that conversation. And he didn't. The barbecue was a success. As the sun began to set, bottles of beer and wine appeared on the table. Conversations grew louder and laughter more frequent. Vanessa sat across from Liam, and he noticed that she'd already had 3 glasses of wine, quite a lot for her. She kept glancing toward Garrett, who was sitting a few seats away from her. Their gazes met once, and it seemed to Liam that some silent message flashed between them. After dinner, someone suggested a game of charades. Vanessa volunteered first and pulled out a task card. She began to mimic something, gesticulating vigorously, and Garrett almost immediately shouted the correct answer. "Gone with the Wind." Yes, but Liam noticed the quick exchange of glances between him and Vanessa. It's like they're reading each other's minds, he thought, and the thought left an unpleasant residue. When it got dark, someone suggested a walk to the lake and admiring the moon reflecting in the water. Liam walked behind them, watching Vanessa laugh at something Eloise whispered in her ear. Garrett kept close to his wife, but his gaze drifted back to Vanessa, and once Liam saw him give her a discreet thumbs up, to which she nodded faintly. At the edge of the lake, everyone scattered in small groups. Liam deliberately stepped aside, pretending to take pictures of the moon's path on the water. He wanted to see if Vanessa would follow him or Garrett. To his relief, she walked over to him and put her arm. "Very," Liam agreed, but he wasn't looking at the water. He was looking at her face, trying to figure out what she was thinking. "Liam," she said in a serious tone, "are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. "In what way?" "In our marriage. Are you happy with me?" Liam hesitated. Their marriage couldn't be called bad. They rarely fought. They supported each other. They had a stable household and common interests. But lately, he felt like an invisible wall had grown between them. "I think so," he said at last. "Do you?" She turned away, staring at the water. "Sometimes I think there's something missing. I don't know. Passion? Newness?" Liam felt a chill go through his chest. "And what do you want?" Vanessa shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe just this vacation will help us bond again. You've been working so much lately, we hardly ever see each other." Liam wanted to say that he was working as much as he always had, that she was the one who was staying late and going to work meetings on weekends. But he kept silent, not wanting to start an argument on the first night of his vacation. "Yeah, maybe you're right," was all he said. At that moment, Garrett came up to them with 2 bottles of beer. "I'm interrupting a romantic moment, but how about another round?" He held out a bottle to Liam. "Thank you." Liam took the beer, noticing Garrett cast a quick glance at Vanessa. There was something about that look that made him tense up internally. Back at the cabin around 11 p.m., Liam and Vanessa were getting ready for bed in cozy silence. Liam lay in bed looking through a book he'd brought with him, while Vanessa took a long splash in the shower. When she came out of there, she smelled of floral shower gel and freshness, and she was wearing a new silk nightgown that Liam hadn't seen before. "New?" he asked, nodding at the shirt. Bought it on sale a couple weeks ago, she replied nonchalantly, brushing her damp hair. Vanessa lay down next to him and reached for her cell phone on the bedside table. Liam noticed that she was holding the device at an angle so he couldn't see the screen. Anything interesting? He asked in as casual a tone as possible. Checking to see if anyone had emailed from work, she answered, typing something quickly. I told you Janet was on vacation, and I have to stay in touch even while we're on vacation. Liam vaguely remembered her saying something about work, but he couldn't recall the details. He'd been missing what Vanessa was saying a lot lately. Maybe that was their problem. So, are they writing? He inquired. No, it's fine, she answered too quickly and locked her phone. Liam turned off his lamp and turned on his side, his back to his wife. Good night, he said. Good night, Vanessa echoed, continuing to type something. Liam lay with his eyes open, staring into the darkness, listening to the sounds of the night outside the window. Crickets, the quiet splash of water, occasional, but the image of the way Garrett was looking at his wife wouldn't leave his mind. And then there was that weird story about who'd first suggested the Pine Coast trip, and how quickly he'd guessed at charades. I'm getting paranoid, Liam thought, rolling over onto his other side. He heard Vanessa finally turn off her phone and put it on the nightstand. After a few minutes, her breathing was deep and she was asleep. Liam lay awake for a long time, staring at the glimmer of moonlight on the lake beyond the window and wondering if he was beginning to lose something very important. The morning of the second day at the recreation center greeted Liam with birds chirping and sunlight streaming through the curtains. He reached out to the other side of the bed but found only a crumpled, empty sheet. Vanessa was already up. Pulling on shorts and a t-shirt, Liam stepped out onto the cabin's small veranda. The lake shimmered in the morning light, as if studded with thousands of shiny shards. There was a cup of unfinished coffee on the table, which meant Vanessa had left not too long ago. Reaching for the cup, Liam noticed a scrap of paper on the wooden floor of the veranda, a note from Vanessa written in her neat handwriting. Went for a run along the lake. We'll be back for breakfast. V. Liam hummed. Vanessa had never been a fan of morning jogs. In their 15 years together, he could count on his fingers the times she'd put on her sneakers and gone out for a morning workout. Usually, he looked around the base area. A few early campers were already settled on the beach with fishing rods. By the boathouse, some man was preparing a canoe for launching. Liam squinted his eyes. He was almost certain it was Garrett. The unpleasant feeling from last night stirred again somewhere in his chest. Liam returned to the cabin, dressed quickly, and headed toward the boathouse, trying to walk at a leisurely pace. When he reached the dock, Garrett had already pushed the canoe into the water and was making himself comfortable in the seat. "Good morning," Liam called to him. "Early fishing?" Garrett flinched and turned around. A strange expression flashed across his face, a mixture of annoyance and guilt? Guilt? "Oh, hi," he smiled strangely. "Yeah, I thought I'd see if they were telling the truth about the base around here. They say they buy—" Garrett hesitated for a moment. "I left them in the cabin. I was going to find a good spot first, then come back for the gear." Liam nodded, pretending to believe the ridiculous explanation. Now he was almost certain that Garrett was going to meet Vanessa somewhere private. "Why don't I come with you?" he suggested. "I've always wanted to try fishing." Garrett was clearly confused. "Actually, I wanted to be alone, to think about it. I'm having a lot of trouble with work right now, you know." "I understand." Liam took a step back. "Some other time." "Yes, we will." Garrett nodded with obvious relief. "Maybe tomorrow we could go fishing together." Liam watched Garrett push the paddle away from the dock and steer the canoe along the shore, where the shoreline curved around a bend and disappeared behind a thick willow thicket. Just where Vanessa should be running, Liam thought. He decided not to go straight back to the cabin. Instead, he climbed a small hill that overlooked the far side of the lake. Squinting, he could make out a figure in a canoe that was moored in a small creek, hidden from the main area of the recreation center. Liam sat down on a fallen tree and began to wait. It was about 20 minutes before he noticed movement on the path that led along the shore. Vanessa, he recognized her from her pink t-shirt, was running slowly, stopping every now and then to look around. When she reached the spot where Garrett had docked, she turned off the path and disappeared among the trees. But an inner voice told him that wasn't the case. He sat on the hill for another half-hour or so. Finally, Vanessa appeared on the path, jogged leisurely along the shore, and turned toward the houses. 10 minutes later, and Garrett pushed off from the shore and steered the canoe back toward the boathouse. Liam stood up, shook off his shorts from the pine needles, and headed back toward the cabin. It was necessary to act as if nothing had happened. When he entered the cabin, Vanessa was already there. Her hair wet from the shower, she was working on a pan of scrambled eggs. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she smiled. "I thought you were still asleep." "I woke up right after you," he replied, watching her reaction. "I decided to take a walk." If Vanessa felt anxious, she hid it well. "How was the run?" Liam. "Great," she nodded. "The trail along the lake is so pretty. I almost made it to the end." She pointed in the opposite direction from where Liam had seen her with Garrett. "Did you meet anyone along the way?" Vanessa froze for a second, but then shrugged nonchalantly. "A couple of early fishermen, and I think Sean and his wife, but I'm not sure, they were far away." Liam nodded, not showing that he'd noticed her lie. "So it's like this. She didn't just meet with Garrett, she's deliberately hiding it." "What are your plans for tonight?" he asked, trying to keep his voice sounding normal. "Eloise suggested we all go boating together after breakfast." "Vanessa, sounds like a good idea," Liam nodded, though the thought of spending the whole day in Garrett's company was something he resisted. After breakfast, they joined the company at the boat station. Eloise greeted them enthusiastically, but Garrett remained a little distant. Liam noticed that his friend avoided looking at Vanessa. "I say we take 2 motorboats," said Derek, another vacationer they'd met yesterday. "One for Sean and me and the girls, and one for the 4 of you." Liam wanted to object and suggest another option, but Vanessa quickly agreed. "That's a great idea." A few minutes later, they were already seated in the motorboats. Liam deliberately sat next to Vanessa, leaving Garrett and Eloise in the front seats. The lake stretched out before them, smooth and sparkling in the sun. Garrett steered the motor confidently, guiding the boat along the picturesque shore. Eloise enthusiastically photographed the scenery, while Vanessa sat silently, her face to the sun and wind. Liam watched her with the corner of his eye. She looked relaxed and happy. When she thought no one could see, her gaze rested on the back of Garrett's head, and there was something in that look that made Liam's heart clench with pain and anger. "Let's land over there," Eloise suggested, pointing to a small sandy beach surrounded by pine trees. "We could swim and have a picnic." Everyone agreed, and soon both boats were docked at the shore. While the women laid out snacks and drinks on the blanket, the men took care of the fire. "How do you like your vacation?" Garrett asked, gathering. "Listen," Garrett lowered his voice. "You seem a little tense today. Is everything all right?" Liam looked at his friend carefully. Garrett looked genuinely concerned, but there was something else in his gaze. Wariness? Guilt? "I'm fine," Liam answered. "I just didn't sleep well." After lunch, everyone went their separate ways. Sean and his wife went for a walk in the woods. Derek and his wife decided to take a nap in the shade of the trees. Eloise was reading a book half lying on the blanket. "I'm going to take another dip," Vanessa said, standing up. "I'll keep you company." Garrett got up immediately. "Eloise, are you coming?" "No, I think I'll stay here." She shook her head, still holding her book. "I've had enough of the water." "Liam!" Vanessa looked at her husband with a strange mixture of challenge and hope. "Go on," he said. He watched the two of them walk toward the water, talking softly. When they were waist-deep in the water, Garrett said something that made Vanessa laugh and nudge him lightly in the shoulder. The gesture was so intimate, so familiar, it made Liam's insides clench. "How long have you and Vanessa been married?" Eloise asked, looking up from her book. 15 years, Liam answered, keeping his eyes on the couple splashing in the water. "Garrett and I will be 13 in a month," Eloise sighed. "Sometimes I don't think he's as happy with me as he used to be." Liam shifted his gaze to her. Eloise looked at her husband with undisguised sadness. "Why do you think that?" Liam didn't know what to say. Was Eloise just complaining, or did she suspect something too? "Maybe it's really just work," he said in a neutral tone. "Times are tough for everyone these days." "Maybe," Eloise nodded without much conviction. When Vanessa and Garrett returned, wet and laughing, Liam noticed the slump in Eloise's shoulders, the way her gaze faded. She saw what he saw. In the evening, a barbecue party was held in the main building of the recreation center for all the guests. Tables were brought out onto a terrace decorated with garlands of lanterns. On a small stage, a local band played cover versions of famous songs. Meat was flipping on the grill. The bartender was mixing cocktails. People were laughing and dancing. Liam sat with a glass of beer, watching Vanessa chatting animatedly with some unfamiliar vacationers. Garrett stood nearby, occasionally casting glances in her direction. At some point, he stepped back toward the restrooms, and after a minute, Vanessa disappeared somewhere else as well. Liam waited a couple minutes and slowly moved in the same direction. The restrooms were at the end of the hallway, and his wife and friend had definitely not returned from there, so they had gone somewhere else. Around the corner of the building began a narrow path leading to the observation deck above the lake. Liam moved cautiously along it, trying not to make any noise. The evening twilight and the dense bushes helped him to remain undetected. He found them on the observation deck. They were standing against the railing, almost touching each other's shoulders. Garrett was saying something quietly, and Vanessa was looking at the water, nodding occasionally. Liam hid behind the thick trunk of a pine tree, trying to breathe quietly and measuredly. "It's too risky," he heard Vanessa's voice. "He suspects something. I'm sure of it." "You're being paranoid," Garrett replied. "Liam doesn't know anything. He's always been a little clueless." "Don't underestimate him." Vanessa shook her head. "This morning he asked if I'd met anyone on my run." Garrett took her hand. "Even if you did, there are only 3 days left. Be patient for a while and it will all be resolved." Vanessa sighed. "And if it doesn't? What if it doesn't go the way we planned?" "Everything will be fine," Garrett pulled her to him. "Trust me." They froze in an embrace, and Liam felt nausea rising in his throat. 15 years of marriage, and just like that it's all blown over? Vanessa and Garrett jerked away from each other and turned toward him. "Who's there?" Garrett called out. Liam froze, pressing himself into the tree trunk and holding his breath. After a tense pause, Garrett said, "Probably some kind of animal. There's plenty of squirrels and rabbits around here." "We'd better go back anyway," Vanessa said hurriedly. "They might miss us." They went down the path, and when their footsteps were silent, Liam slid slowly down the tree trunk to the ground. He was shaking. So it was true then, his wife and his best friend, and something they're planning, something that should be resolved in 3 days, when their vacation was over. He sat in the shade of a tree until it was finally dark. When he returned to the party, Vanessa was looking for him among the guests with a concerned look. "Where have you been?" she asked. I was worried. What a worry, Liam thought bitterly. I had a headache, he said. I thought I'd take a walk, get some fresh air. Are you feeling better? She sounded genuinely worried, and that only made it hurt more. How could she be so duplicitous? A little, he nodded. But I think I'll go to the cabin. You can stay if you want. No, no, Vanessa shook her head. I'll come with you. The party's over anyway. They walked in silence toward the cabin. Liam felt a deafening rage building up inside. Every time he remembered Vanessa and Garrett together, he wanted to smash something. But he had to keep his cool. He must find out what they were up to and gather evidence. When they got back to the cabin, Vanessa went straight into the shower. Liam heard the sound of the water and quietly picked up her phone from the table. There was no way to unlock it. It needed a passcode. He used to know her passwords, but she'd changed them in the last year, explaining it was for security reasons. Liam put the phone down and sat on the bed, wrapping his arms around his head. He had to figure out how to get proof. After all, if he just accused his wife of cheating, she might deny it, and he needed hard facts. When Vanessa came out of the shower, he was already lying with his eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. She lay quietly beside him, careful not to disturb him, and after a few minutes her breathing became even and deep. Liam opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling for a long time. What am I going to do? He thought. Make a scandal? Demand an explanation? Tell Eloise? Or just pack up and leave, leaving this traitorous woman with her lover? No, it's too easy for them. They need to be taught a lesson. Show them that betrayal like this doesn't go unpunished. And he had only 3 days to plan his revenge and gather evidence. The third day of vacation began with a light rain. The drops drummed on the wooden roof of the cabin, creating a cozy, soothing rhythm. Liam lay with his eyes open, listening to the sound and measuring the beats of his own heart. Vanessa was still asleep with her back turned to him. Last night, after overhearing a conversation on the observation deck, he hadn't been able to sleep until deep into the night. A hurricane of emotions raged inside: anger, resentment, distrust, shock. He thought back over their lives, trying to pinpoint the moment when it all went wrong. Maybe it was when he started picking up extra shifts at the car service, or when they decided to put off having kids, focusing on their careers. Or had it started when Vanessa got a promotion and started spending more time at work? Now he understood why she had been staying late and away at conferences so often in recent months. His wife, a person he trusted infinitely, was cheating on him with his own best friend. The rain intensified, turning into a real downpour. Vanessa stirred and turned toward him, sleepily opening her eyes. "Good morning," she mumbled. "Oh, the rain. I guess we won't be able to go boating today." "Yeah," Liam agreed. "We'll have to think of something else." She reached for him, but he moved away unobtrusively, pretending he just wanted to get out of bed. Vanessa frowned, but didn't say anything. While she was in the shower, Liam decided to check her phone again. To his surprise, it was unlocked. Apparently, Vanessa had been checking something during the night and had forgotten to turn on the password. This was his chance. With his heart racing, he opened the messenger and found a chat room with Garrett. There was surprisingly little correspondence. They probably deleted messages periodically. But even what was left was eloquent enough. "Yesterday was great. Can't wait to see you next time." A message from Garrett dated a week ago, even before the vacation. "Me too, but need to be more careful. Elle has started asking questions." Vanessa's reply. "It'll be easier on vacation. There's plenty of places to get some privacy," Garrett wrote. "What about A? Doesn't she suspect anything?" Vanessa asked. "Eloise is too naive. She believes everything I say." Garrett's last message burned Liam with its cynicism. He heard the shower turn off and quickly put the phone back down. When Vanessa came out of the bathroom, he sat on the bed with a neutral expression on his face, though inside everything was boiling with rage. "Text Eloise. See what their plans are for tonight," he said. "Maybe we could all gather in the main building and play board games or watch a movie." Vanessa nodded and picked up her phone. When she noticed that it was unlocked, she gave. Under the hot jets of water, he continued to ponder his next steps. Correspondence wasn't enough. They could deny it, claim the messages were taken out of context. He needed photos, videos, audio recordings, something that couldn't be refuted. When he returned to the room, Vanessa announced that the Murphys and a few other families were planning to gather in the main building after lunch. "There's a fireplace, board games, billiards," she said. "And the forecast said it was going to rain all day." "Great," Liam nodded. "And before lunch?" "I thought I'd get some work done." Vanessa pointed to her laptop. "I have some unfinished spreadsheets to work on." Liam nodded, pretending to believe her. He knew it was a cover. She was probably going to text Garrett or worse, meet him. "I'll go to the gym then," he said. "Saw an ad yesterday saying it was in the basement of the main building." He didn't really have any desire to work out. He just needed an excuse to leave so he could secretly watch the lodge afterward. If Garrett came, he'd be ready. The rain had eased a little, turning into a drizzling mist as Liam stepped out of their cabin. He pretended to head toward the main building, but as soon as he was out of sight, he walked around the neighboring cabin and took up an observation position behind a large, spreading bush. From there, they had a clear view of the cabin and the path leading to it. They did not have to wait long. 15 minutes later, Garrett, hooded in his raincoat, walked briskly toward the Thorntons' cabin. He knocked and stepped inside, the door opening almost immediately, indicating. Liam felt bitterness rise to his throat. Even seeing everything with his own eyes, some part of him kept hoping that it was a misunderstanding, that there was some innocent explanation. Now that hope had crumbled. He pulled out his phone and snapped a few pictures, Garrett entering their cabin, closing the door behind him. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. Next, he needed to somehow capture their interactions inside. Liam moved cautiously toward the cabin, trying not to make any noise and keeping to the wet bushes where his footsteps were muffled by the rain. Their cabin stood on a slight rise, and on the lakeside below it was a narrow technical platform for maintaining the drainage pipes. Liam walked down to it, finding himself directly under the bedroom window. The window was ajar. Apparently, the sounds came clearly. First, just footsteps, the rustle of clothes, the clatter of something on the table. Then, Garrett's voice. "Are you sure he won't be back early?" "Absolutely," Vanessa answered. "When he says he's going to the gym, he usually stays there for at least 2 hours. We can talk about it in peace." Liam quietly turned on the recorder on his phone, praying that the rain wouldn't drown out their voices. "Did Eloise suspect anything?" Vanessa asked. "No." Garrett's voice sounded confident. "She still believes every word I say. When I came back from our meeting, she didn't even ask where I'd been." "Liam's becoming a problem," Vanessa sounded worried. He was looking at me weird yesterday, and I'm pretty sure someone was watching us on the observation deck. You're overthinking this, Garrett said. Even if he suspects something, he has no proof. Besides, it'll all be decided tomorrow night. Are you sure you're ready? Yes, Vanessa answered firmly. I've got everything ready. Tomorrow, during the movie night when everyone gathers. At that moment, there was a loud cracking sound. Liam, trying to hear their conversation better, stepped on a dry branch. The sounds in the cabin instantly died down. What's that? Garrett's tense voice. It's probably just a fallen branch. Vanessa tried to reassure him, but she sounded worried. Liam froze, afraid to move. They were talking about tomorrow night, about the movie night, about how everything would work out. What were they planning? Leave together? Announce their relationship? Or something worse? Let's not talk about it now anyway, Garrett said. We'll meet at the agreed place after dinner tonight, and we'll discuss it. Okay, Vanessa agreed. I'll send you the pictures and everything right before the meeting. Liam heard footsteps and realized that Garrett was leaving. He quickly got out from under the cabin and, trying to move quietly, moved a safe distance away, hiding behind a neighboring building. A few minutes later, Garrett emerged from their cabin, looked around, and headed back to his place with a quick step. Liam didn't go to the gym or back to the lodge. Instead, he wandered around the recreation center grounds in the rain, trying to make sense of what he had heard. What did Vanessa's words about pictures mean? What proof was she going to show Garrett? And what were they planning for tomorrow night? He was so absorbed in his thoughts that he didn't notice Eloise until she called out to him. Liam, what are you doing out in the rain without an umbrella? He looked up and saw a red-haired woman walking towards him with a large umbrella. Just clearing my head, he answered awkwardly. Can I keep you company? She asked. I was just looking for someone to talk to. Garrett had disappeared again. Liam nodded and they walked slowly down the path along the lake. Eloise shared her vacation experiences, talked about the book she was reading, but Liam listened half-heartedly. At some point she noticed it. I'm sorry. Am I talking too much? She asked with a faint smile. No, no, Liam hastened to assure her. Just a lot of thoughts in my head. What are you thinking about? She sounded genuinely curious. Liam looked at her, and suddenly he had the urge, but now wasn't the time. Without hard evidence, she might not believe him, and even if she did, Garrett might deny it, make it sound like Liam was just jealous paranoia. No, if the truth was to be revealed, it had to be with hard facts, so that no one would have any doubts. Thinking about the future, he answered vaguely, about how quickly things might change. Eloise nodded thoughtfully. You know, Liam, I've wanted to talk to you for a long time. You know Garrett better than anyone. Do you think— She hesitated. Is he happy with me? The question caught Liam off guard. How should he answer it? Lie to his wife's friends who are already tormented by doubts, or tell the truth that will break her heart? Why do you ask? He answered question for question. I don't know. He's been distant lately. He often stays late, doesn't talk much about his affairs. I even began to think— She didn't finish the sentence. Thinking what? Liam asked quietly. That maybe he has someone else, Eloise said in a near whisper, her eyes glistening with tears. Liam felt his insides tighten. He couldn't tell her the truth now, not without proof, not in the rain. But he couldn't bear to lie either. Eloise, he began cautiously, I can't speak for Garrett, but I know that relationships have their rough patches. Sometimes people drift apart and then grow closer again. She smiled through her tears. Thank you, Liam. You've always been a good friend. He felt like he'd been punched in the butt. A good friend. If she only knew how cynically her husband discussed her naivete with his wife. They reached the main building where other vacationers were already gathering, escaping the rain. "Shall we go inside?" Eloise suggested. "Garrett and Vanessa should be there." "Go," Liam shook his head. "I'll walk around some more and join you later." Back at the lodge, Liam found that Vanessa had already left, leaving a note saying she was waiting for him in the main building. He checked the tape recorder. The quality wasn't perfect due to the rain, but the main content of the conversation could be made out. Sitting in the empty cabin, he analyzed the evidence once more. The correspondence in Vanessa's phone, the recording of their conversation with Garrett, the photos of his visit to the cabin. The evidence was there, but still not conclusive enough. But most importantly, he now knew they had something planned for tomorrow night, during the movie night. And a meeting place tonight, where they were going to. Liam opened the map of the recreation center on his phone. Where could they meet? The place should be secluded but accessible even in bad weather. There were a few gazebos on the lakeside, but they were too exposed in the rain. The path to the observation deck became dangerous in the dark. That left the old boat shed on the far dock, a quiet place fairly isolated from the main base area. Yes, it was probably the one they'd chosen. Liam remembered Garrett asking the receptionist yesterday if the lights worked there, and he'd said yes. There was a lamp and even an old heater inside. A plan began to form in his head. Tonight he would have to document their meeting, take pictures, maybe even a video. And then he would have the whole day to prepare his surprise for the movie night. Technically, it wouldn't be difficult. He worked with electronics in a car service. He knew how to connect his laptop to a TV or a projector. The key was to get the timing right. Liam took a deep breath, feeling the determination growing inside. Garrett and Vanessa had thought they were so smart, so cunning, that no one would notice their game. But they were wrong, and he would show them how cruelly wrong they were. The morning of the fourth day of the vacation was clear and sunny, as if nature itself had decided to play along with Liam's plans. He woke up before Vanessa and lay there for a while, watching her sleep. 15 years together. 15 years he'd woken up next to this person, trusted her, shared her joys and sorrows, and all that time she'd been capable of betrayal. Careful not to wake his wife, Liam got out of bed and walked out onto the cabin's veranda. The lake shimmered in the morning light, reminding him of the first day they'd arrived. He hadn't known what awaited him then, though perhaps subconsciously he had already sensed something wrong. Last night, after tracking Vanessa and Garrett down in the boat shed, he'd gotten the latest, most irrefutable proof of their connection. He'd managed to take not only pictures, but a short video of their embrace through a crack in the wall. The conversation didn't make it onto the tape, too far away, too quietly spoken, but their closeness was more eloquent than any words. Now he had all the proof he needed. All that remained was to put it together and prepare it for tomorrow night's movie night. "Good morning." Vanessa's voice behind him made him wince. "How long have you been up?" "About 20 minutes." She stepped closer and put her arm around his shoulders. Liam smelled her scent, the same scent that had once driven him crazy. It seemed foreign now. "Last full day at the lake," Vanessa sighed. "We'll be leaving tomorrow afternoon. Let's spend it well, shall we?" Liam turned and looked her in the eye. How could she stand here, put her arms around him, and talk about having a good day when yesterday she'd been in the arms of another man? How could she fake it so skillfully? "Of course," he forced out a smile. "What are your plans?" "Eloise suggested that we all take a boat trip to the other side of the lake. There's a small town with souvenir shops and cafes. And in the evening, as you know, there's a movie night." Liam nodded. "That sounds great. I'm going to need to go into town for a while." It was a lie, but he really needed to get away, to find a place where he could quietly prepare his presentation, print out some photos, check the compatibility of the laptop with the equipment in the common room. Oh, Vanessa looked a little disappointed. You can't come with us? I'll try to make it fast and catch up with you, Liam promised. You know how much I love to drive a boat. Breakfast was as usual. They sat on the veranda with coffee and toast, discussing the latest news that Vanessa had read on her phone. Liam tried his best to keep the conversation normal without showing his true feelings. The times when they had really talked seemed so far away. He remembered their first meeting, a small coffee shop near the college where Vanessa worked as a barista. He'd stop by every morning before class, and they'd exchange jokes across the counter. Then he asked her to a movie, then to dinner. 3 years of dating, a proposal on her college graduation day, a lavish wedding. When did it all go wrong? Maybe it happened gradually, unnoticed by both of them? Or was there a specific event, a moment when their lives began to drift apart? Liam? Vanessa's voice snapped him out of his reverie. Did you hear what I said? Sorry, I was thinking. He shook his head. What did you say? I asked what time you were planning on getting back from the city. We want to leave on the boats at 11 o'clock. I'll try to make it, Liam nodded. But don't wait for me if I'm late. I can catch up with you on the beach. After breakfast, Vanessa went to Murphy's cabin to discuss the details of the trip. Liam was sure it was also an opportunity for her and Garrett to have a few words alone, away from prying eyes. He didn't follow her. There was no need for that anymore. Instead, Liam sat down at his laptop and began gathering all the evidence he could get his hands on. First, he transferred photos from his phone. Garrett and Vanessa at the lookout, their secret meeting in the boat shed, Garrett entering their cabin. Then he added screenshots of the correspondence he had time to take while looking through Vanessa's phone. Finally, excerpts of recorded conversations where compromising phrases were particularly clear. Working on the presentation, Liam felt strangely calm. The anger hadn't gone away, but now it was cold, calculating. It helped to think clearly, to plan each step. Once the basis of the presentation was ready, Liam added a headline, "The Truth About Two Traitors," and a few short captions to the photos. Then he saved the file and closed the laptop. It was almost 10 o'clock in the morning, time to head into town. Liam gathered the necessary things: his laptop, adapters to connect to the TV, a flash drive with a backup copy of the presentation. As he drove past the main building, he saw Eloise unpacking some things into her boat on the dock. She waved at him and Liam stopped the car. "Leaving?" she asked, coming closer. "Not for long," Liam nodded. "I need to buy a part for the car." "Too bad," Eloise looked genuinely upset. "We were all thinking of going for a ride together. I'll try to be back soon," he promised. Vanessa said the same thing. Eloise frowned. She'd gone somewhere else too, said she forgot to buy some sunscreen and went to the drugstore. Liam tensed. So Vanessa had found an excuse to leave too. Most likely, she and Garrett had decided to meet somewhere outside the recreation center to quietly discuss their plans for the evening. "Maybe we could meet her in town," Liam shrugged, trying to keep his voice casual. "Is Garrett coming with you?" "Yes, he's helping Derek with the boats." Eloise nodded, then lowered her voice. "Liam, can I ask you a strange question?" "Sure," he tensed, expecting her to ask about Vanessa and Garrett. "Have you noticed anything unusual about Garrett's behavior lately?" she asked, nervously touseling a strand of her red hair. "He's been kind of secretive, always checking his phone, always finding reasons to go somewhere. I'm starting to think that he's seeing someone?" Liam asked bluntly. Eloise blushed and lowered her eyes. "Silly, isn't it? We've been married 13 years. We've always had complete trust. But in the last couple of months, I just don't recognize him." Liam looked at this woman, so open, so vulnerable, and his insides clenched. Tomorrow she'd learn the bitter truth and her world would crumble. But isn't the bitter truth better than a sweet lie? "You know, Eloise," he said slowly, "sometimes people change and not always for the better. But no matter what happens, remember you're strong, stronger than you think." Eloise looked at him in surprise. "Why do you talk as if you know something I don't?" Liam smiled softly. "Just general observations. I've got to go, or the parts store will be closing for lunch soon." He left, feeling her perplexed look on his face. Perhaps it was too direct, but he couldn't help but give her at least a hint of what lay ahead. In the nearest town, a 20-minute drive from the recreation center, Liam's first order of business was to go to a computer store, where he bought the necessary adapters to connect his laptop to any TV or projector. Then he found a small cafe with Wi-Fi, ordered a coffee, and sat down to finish his presentation. As he worked on the file, he continued to reflect on his marriage. He and Vanessa had once been truly happy, making plans, dreaming of children, of a home of their own. But then life took its toll on them. He worked hard, trying to provide for his family. She got a promotion and was hardly ever at home either. They began to live in parallel, not together. But did that justify cheating? Couldn't they just talk, try to solve the problem, or, in the end, honestly part ways? Why was it necessary to lie, to pretend, to date his own best friend behind his back? Liam felt a wave of anger rise to his throat again, and he took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. Gotta keep a clear head. Tomorrow they were going to find out what happened when you played with other people's feelings. After the cafe, Liam stopped by the electronics store, where he discreetly checked the compatibility of the adapters he'd bought with different models of TVs. Then he found a copy center and printed out some photos, just in case something went wrong with the electronics. On his way back to the recreation center, he passed a small auto repair shop and remembered to back up his breakdown legend. Stopping, he bought a car part he didn't need so he could show Vanessa if necessary. It was almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon when Liam returned to the recreation center. He didn't see any of the company on the dock. Apparently they hadn't returned from their trip yet. That was to his advantage. He had a chance to sneak into the main building and check the equipment for the movie show. The movie was to be held in the large auditorium on the second floor of the main building. Liam went up there, pretending to just look around. The hall was empty, with only a cleaning lady wiping down the large screen on the wall. He discreetly examined the system, a regular projector hooked up to a DVD player. Luckily, there was an HDMI connector as well, which made his task much easier. "What are they showing tomorrow?" he asked the cleaning lady casually. "Some classics, Casablanca, I think," the woman replied. "They always show old movies on Fridays, and before that, they usually play a slideshow of pictures of the guests that the receptionists take during the week." That was great news. It meant that no one would be surprised. Vanessa was the first to notice him. She waved to him from the boat she was sitting on with Eloise and another couple of vacationers. Garrett was driving the other boat, carrying Derek and his wife and Sean. "How was the trip?" Vanessa asked when they docked. "Did you find the right part?" "Yeah," Liam nodded, showing her the package. "How was your trip?" "It was great," Eloise said enthusiastically. "You missed a lot. The views are so beautiful and the town has amazing handmade souvenirs." "We also saw beavers," Vanessa added. "They were building a dam near the eastern shore." Liam noticed that she was carefully avoiding looking at Garrett, who was helping Derek pull the boat to shore. It was suspicious. She usually cast interested glances at him every— "I'm sorry I missed it," Liam said. "Maybe we could go again tomorrow before we leave, at dawn." "That's a great idea," Eloise cheered. "Garrett, what do you think?" Garrett, who was just approaching them, looked a little tense. "I don't know. Waking up at dawn on the last day of vacation. Please," Eloise looked at him pleadingly. "This is our last chance." "Okay," he grudgingly agreed. "If everyone wants it." Liam watched their exchange of remarks carefully. Something wasn't right. Garrett, usually energetic and adventurous, seemed unsure, almost nervous. Perhaps he was worried about what he had planned for the evening. The rest of the day passed in the usual vacation activities: swimming, barbecues on the beach, board games at Derek's cabin, which had the largest veranda. Liam tried to act natural, but he couldn't help but notice the occasional quick glances Vanessa and Garrett exchanged when they thought no one was watching. In the evening, back at their cabin, Liam and Vanessa were silently getting ready for bed. She looked pensive, even sad, which was unusual for her on vacation. "Is everything okay?" Liam asked, deciding to see if she would tell him the truth. Vanessa shuddered, as if she'd been pulled out of her deep thoughts. "A little tired from today's trip, and it's a shame the vacation's ending." "We could come here again next year," Liam suggested, knowing full well that wasn't going to happen. "Yeah," she answered uncertainly. "Maybe." They went to bed with their backs to each other, not touching even casually. Liam lay with his eyes open, listening to Vanessa's breathing. When it became steady and deep, he carefully got out of bed, grabbed his laptop, and went out onto the veranda. The night was clear, starry. The lake rustled quietly with the waves near the shore. Liam opened the presentation and went over it again, making small adjustments, then checked to make sure all the equipment was ready for tomorrow night. Tomorrow, everyone would know the truth. Tomorrow, he would strike his blow, and life would never be the same again. But tonight, on the last night of his marriage, he just sat on the veranda, looking up at the stars and remembering how happy he had once been. The last day of their vacation at the lake was cloudless and hot. Liam woke up early when the first rays of sunlight were just beginning to peek through the curtains. Vanessa was still asleep, curled up on her side of the bed, her breathing even and calm. She hadn't realized that this day would be their last together. Liam stood up silently and walked out onto the veranda. The lake looked especially beautiful in the morning light. The smooth surface of the water reflected the pinkish sky and the surrounding hills. In another situation, he would have just enjoyed the scenery, maybe woken Vanessa up to share this moment with her. But right now, his thoughts were occupied with something else entirely. In the evening, after dinner, a movie night was to be held in the main hall of the recreation center, a traditional event for the last day of rest. First, they show a slideshow with photos of the guests that the administrators had taken during the week, and then some classic movie. The perfect moment to reveal the truth. He mentally went over his plan one more time. Everything was ready to go. The presentation on his laptop, adapters for the projector, a backup on a flash drive. He'd even printed out a few key photos in case the tech failed. "Good morning." Vanessa's voice behind him made him wince. "It's a beautiful sunrise." "Yeah," Liam replied dryly, not turning around. Vanessa stepped closer, and he felt her hand on his shoulder. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "You've been kind of detached." How ironic, Liam thought. She cheats on him with his best friend and then asks if everything's okay. "Just a little tired," he replied. "And sorry that vacation is ending." "Me too," Vanessa sighed. "The last few days have been special." "You bet," Liam thought, but said aloud, "I'm going to go check on the boat for the morning walk." "Up at 7? "Yeah." Garrett said he and Eloise would be ready. Vanessa nodded. Liam went down to the dock where their boats were parked. Garrett was already there, checking the engine. "Hey," Liam said, stepping closer. "Getting ready to go out?" Garrett flinched slightly when he heard his voice. "Ah, Liam," he smiled, strained. "Yeah, just making sure everything's okay. The engine was a little rough yesterday." They stood side by side, and Liam had a strange feeling, a mixture of bitterness, frustration, and anger. This man had been his best friend since high school. They'd played soccer together, gone to college together, witnessed each other's weddings. And this same man had betrayed him in the most despicable way. "You know," Liam said suddenly to himself, "I've been thinking about our friendship, how long we've known each other." Garrett gave him a quick, wary look. "Yeah, forever. And all that time, I've thought of you as a man I could trust." Liam looked straight into Garrett's eyes. "A man of honor." Garrett looked away and fiddled with the engine with exaggerated attention. "Well, you're exaggerating. I'm just like everyone else." "No," Liam shook his head. "Turns out you're worse than most." Garrett froze, then straightened slowly. "What do you mean?" But Liam just shrugged. "Nothing much. Just thinking out loud. I'll see you in an hour." He turned and walked back toward the cabin, feeling Garrett's tense gaze on his back. This little confrontation wasn't part of his plan, but he couldn't help himself. Let Garrett torture himself wondering exactly what Liam knew. The walk at dawn turned out to be a tense one. They were in two boats, Liam and Vanessa in one, Garrett and Eloise in the other. Liam noticed that Garrett was unaccustomedly silent, and Vanessa tried not to look in his direction. Eloise seemed to be the only one genuinely enjoying the ride. She was marveling at the beauty of the morning. When they got back to the base, it was already approaching lunchtime. The rest of the day was to be spent packing. Eviction from the lodges was scheduled for the following morning. "Let's meet for dinner and then go to a movie," Eloise suggested when they docked. "That's a great idea," Liam agreed. "It would be a nice way to end the vacation." Garrett and Vanessa exchanged quick glances but agreed. They were clearly planning something of their own for the evening, and Liam was determined to ruin their plans. Back at the cabin, Liam and Vanessa began packing. They worked in silence, each immersed in their own thoughts. At one point, Vanessa broke the silence. "Liam, we need to talk." He froze, holding a stack of t-shirts. "About what?" Vanessa looked nervous. She was rubbing the edge of her t-shirt and avoiding his gaze. "About us, about our marriage, about what comes next." Is she going to confess? A thought flashed through Liam's mind. But no, confessing now wouldn't change anything. "Let's talk after vacation," he said, "when we get home." "But after vacation, Vanessa," Liam repeated firmly. Today we'll just enjoy our last day here." She looked at him with a long, unreadable stare, then nodded and went back to packing her suitcases. Liam discreetly checked his backpack, where the laptop with the presentation lay. Everything was in place. He also prepared a separate bag with all the necessary items for departure: house keys, documents, money. After what would happen in the evening, he had no intention of returning to the lodge. The evening came quietly. Liam and Vanessa joined the others in the main building restaurant. All the tables were occupied. It looked like most dinner passed in a relatively relaxed atmosphere. Eloise talked about her work as a nurse. Derek and Sean argued about politics. Their wives discussed some popular TV series. Vanessa was engaged in the conversation, but Liam noticed that she often glanced at her watch. Garrett was unusually quiet, only occasionally inserting lines into the conversation. When dessert was finished, the recreation center receptionist announced that a movie would begin in 20 minutes in the main hall. "Shall we go?" Eloise suggested. "I saw the poster. Today they are showing Casablanca." "Sure," Liam nodded. "I'll just go to the car. I left my phone charger there." It was a lie. He needed to sneak into the auditorium before the show started so he could plug his laptop into the projector. "I'm going into the cabin to change," Vanessa said. Her dress was stained with sauce. "And I forgot my jacket. It's chilly by the lake in the evening. I'm going to go get it too." They're up to something, Liam thought. Maybe they want to meet before the session to discuss their plan. "Then we'll meet right in the hall," he said. "I'll get seats for everyone." Parting outside the restaurant, Liam headed straight for the main hall. To his satisfaction, there was no one there yet, only a technician adjusting the projector. "Hi," Liam said in a friendly tone. "I hear there's going to be a slideshow of the guest photos tonight?" "Yes," the technician nodded. "First, a slideshow for about 15 minutes, then a movie." "Great," Liam smiled. "I have some pictures I took while on vacation, too. I'd like to add them to the slideshow. Is that possible?" The technician shrugged. "Why not? Let's take a look." Liam handed him the flash drive on which his presentation was saved. "It's a slideshow with music," he explained. "I prepared it in advance so as not to waste your time." "Great." The technician inserted the flash drive into the computer connected to the projector. "Let's check it out." He started the file, and the first slide with a picture of the lake at sunset appeared on the screen. "Beautiful," the technician nodded approvingly. "Okay, I'll put it before our slideshow. Yours will run for the first 5 minutes, then ours, and then the movie." "Perfect," Liam smiled. "Thank you so much." He stayed in the hall, ostensibly taking seats for his company, but in reality making sure that no one changed the order of the show. Soon the hall began to fill with people. Derek and his wife arrived, then Sean, and finally Eloise appeared, talking excitedly to her cabin. "He said he'd be late," Eloise shrugged. "Something about a phone call from the boss." Vanessa showed up alone too, wearing a new dress, her hair perfect. She looked a little nervous as she took the seat next to Liam. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah, it's just," she faltered. "Just a lot on my mind." Garrett entered the hall at the last moment as the lights were beginning to dim. He quickly slid into the empty seat next to Eloise, casting an apologetic glance at the company. The technician announced the start of the show, and the first slide of Liam's presentation appeared on the screen, the same picture of the lake at sunset that the technician had seen. Liam felt Vanessa tense up beside him. He cautiously turned his head and saw that she was staring at the screen unwaveringly, as if they're waiting for their presentation, Liam realized. They really have something prepared for this evening. The second slide showed their company on the beach, a casual photo taken by someone on the base staff. The third was of the boats on the dock. And then the real slides began. A picture of Garrett entering Liam and Vanessa's cabin. Vanessa sneaking a meeting with Garrett on the far side of the lake. The two of them in the boat shed. Screenshots of their correspondence. Above each photo was a caption, date, time, and a short First, the red-haired woman's face reflected incomprehension, then shock, and finally, a horrifying realization. She shifted her gaze from the screen to her husband, tears welling up in her eyes. Garrett looked as if he had been kicked in the butt. He opened and closed his mouth, unable to utter a word. Whispers began in the room, and some people turned to look at the participants in the unfolding drama. Vanessa was the first to break the daze. She grabbed Liam's arm. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Stop this now." Liam calmly released his hand. "No, Vanessa. Let everyone see the truth." The screen now showed pictures of their embrace in the boat shed, taken through a gap in the wall. Even in the dim light, their closeness, which could not be explained by simple friendship, was clearly visible. Eloise stood up suddenly. Her face was flooded with tears, her hands trembling. "How could you?" She looked not at the screen, but directly at Garrett. "How could you do this to me?" Garrett stood up as well. "Eloise, it's not what you think." "It's not?" Her voice broke into a scream. "What am I supposed to think when I look at this?" She pointed to the screen, which now showed a screenshot of the correspondence in which Garrett had called her too naive and believing every word he said. "Eloise, listen," Garrett began, but he didn't have time to finish. Eloise swung around and slapped him across the face with such force that the sound of the slap echoed throughout the room, and then she burst into tears, loudly, desperately, with such unconcealed grief that tears came to many people's eyes. 13 years, she shouted through her sobs. 13 years I have been faithful to you, and you. She could not finish her sentence, shaking with sobs. Some woman came up to her, put her arm around her shoulders and led her to the exit. Vanessa sat with her hands over her face. When she finally raised her head, her face was dead pale. "Liam," she whispered, "you don't understand." But Liam had already gotten up, grabbed his backpack and headed for the exit. "Liam, wait!" Vanessa jumped up and rushed after him. "Let me explain." He didn't stop, didn't even turn around. He walked calmly, measuredly out of the hall through the lobby and toward the parking lot. Vanessa caught up with him by the car. "You can't just leave. We have to talk." Liam turned and looked at her. There was desperation in her eyes, but he saw no remorse in them, only fear and shock that their secret had been revealed. "I have nothing to say to you, Vanessa," he said in a flat voice. "It's all said there." He nodded toward the main building. "But you don't understand." She grabbed his arm. "Garrett and I don't." Liam released her hand and opened the trunk of the car. He pulled out a pre-prepared bag of essentials and put it in the back seat. "You can get the stuff yourself," he said. "You have the keys to the house, but when I get back, you shouldn't be there." "You can't do this to me," her voice broke. 15 years of marriage and you just walk out. No conversation, no explanation. Could you do that to me? For the first time, there was bitterness in his voice. Cheat on me with my best friend, lying to my face, planning something behind my back. "We weren't planning anything bad," Vanessa exclaimed. "We wanted to." But Liam had already gotten into the car and slammed the door shut. He started the engine and drove off slowly, seeing in the rearview mirror Vanessa standing in the parking lot, shouting after him. As he drove out of the recreation center, he noticed the figure of Garrett at the gate, who seemed to be trying to escape as well. But his car was blocked by other cars, and he was standing nearby, smoking nervously. When he saw Liam, Garrett raised his hand as if he wanted to stop him, but Liam only increased his speed. The highway twisted between the hills, taking him farther and farther away from the lake, from the recreation center, from 15 years of a life that had been built on lies. He didn't know where he was going, but that didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was that he was finally free of the betrayal. It had been 6 months since that evening at the lake. Liam sat in the cafe, going over the divorce papers he had just signed. The process had taken longer than he'd expected. Vanessa had first refused to admit guilt, then tried to explain that things with Garrett weren't what they looked like. But the photos and tapes spoke for themselves. He learned from mutual friends that Eloise had also filed for divorce and moved to another city. Garrett lost his job, the owner of a construction store, an old-fashioned man with strong moral principles, did not want to keep in his team a man with a dubious reputation. Vanessa tried to contact Liam several more times after that night, but he didn't answer calls or emails. After a while, she gave up and agreed to the divorce. Liam didn't know what had become of his relationship with Garrett, didn't want to know. That life was behind him and he could only look forward. Finished with the paperwork, he paid the bill and left the cafe. It was early spring outside and the air smelled fresh and renewed. Liam inhaled deeply, feeling strangely calm. Revenge had not brought him the satisfaction he had expected. There was no triumph or joy at another's suffering. But there was relief, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He was no longer a cheating husband living a lie. He was just Liam, a man who'd learned a painful lesson but had persevered and moved on. The phone in his pocket vibrated. A message from a colleague at work, an invitation to a birthday party. Liam smiled and replied in agreement. Life went on, and perhaps the best part of it was yet to come.